I don't think we're going to have that problem.
I don't think we will either.
So, well, good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the Monday, June 25th, 2018, regular session of the Speedway Redevelopment Commission. And what I'd like to do is introduce everyone here at the table. To my immediate left is Brody Duncan, Commission member. And next to him is Rhonda Schwartz, the Secretary of the Commission. And on my far left is Dr. Terry Reed, an esteemed member of this commission for quite some time. And then immediately to my right is Tim Gropp, who is our Economic Development Director for the town of Speedway.
Good evening. In
our audience, we have Tim Ramian, Executive Assistant for Tim in the Economic Development Department. And then also Mark Griffith. Mark Griffith has joined us. He's with the Veritas Group, and he'll be making a little presentation a little bit later on in our meeting. So now that we've confirmed we have a quorum and the proper notifications have been posted for our meeting, what I'd like to do is move on to the next agenda item, which is public comments. So if anyone in the audience, and again, I sincerely appreciate the tremendous turnout that we've got this evening, and if anybody in the audience would like to come to the lectern and make any comments, please do so right now. No comments? Questions? Observations? Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. The next item on our agenda is the consent of the meeting minutes for our executive session of May 21st, 2018, our regular session of May 21st, 2018, and the recent joint executive session with the Town Council that was held on May 31st, 2018. Those minutes have been previously distributed, and unless I have any corrections, edits, comments, we will accept those by consent. So those meeting minutes have been accepted and will be posted on our website at an appropriate time. The next item we have is our approval of claims and expenses for the commission. Those had again been previously distributed by our town clerk treasurer, Monty Combs. And what I'd like to do is ask Mr. Gropp to give a brief explanation of these expenses. They appear to be customary and not necessarily out of the norm. But is there anything unusual, Tim, that you'd like to point out?
No, very minimal this month, so I'm happy about that. The two I'd point out is we did have air source heating and cooling come into the annex. We were having when the air was on, it was really loud and you couldn't really conduct business. So they made some changes to our system, and that's what the $600 repair to the interior vents is.
Was there ductwork, fan
It was
motors?
ductwork. They added, I can't get too technical, but basically, yeah, there wasn't enough. It was too much force through not enough.
Too airflow.
Yeah, exit, so it was
small
making it
ductwork.
loud. Correct.
Jet airplanes.
And then we have this monthly pest control, Orkin. We've been having some problems at the Bell Racing Helmet facility.
Still.
Well, we signed a contract to go
Right.
through the year on this, so they're monitoring it to make sure we don't have those problems. But
there hasn't any reoccurring infestation?
Not since we've started this that I'm aware of. I haven't been told, but just one of those old building issues.
Good. Okay. Anybody have any questions about the claims and expenditures for the month? Well, hearing no questions, I'll entertain a motion to accept those claims and expenses.
I move that we accept the claims and expenses.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the claims and expenses as previously distributed. So unless there's any further questions, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 3-0. I failed to mention that unfortunately Gordon Rundle, our Vice President of the Council, is unable to make it this evening. But as I'd mentioned earlier, we do have a quorum to conduct business. So thank you very much. Now we're going to move on to our project updates. The first project we'll have an update from Mark Griffith of the Veritas Group is our Wilshire project. Mark?
Yes. Good evening. Just wanted to give a quick update on the Wilshaw project with Skinnell Properties and then CRG Residential. Making some pretty good progress on site despite some weather and heat and rain in the last month. The north structure framing is for the most part complete. They've got some balconies they've got to frame up, and then they should be done with framing. The structure is under roof. Windows were delivered and installation on windows have started today, so they're getting the building closed in, which will allow them to continue on in their rough ends, but then get drywall on the building and start doing some drywall. Talked to Jay Malloy with CRG this afternoon. He's planning on having some of those units inspected even as early as next week, so he'll be able to move those units further along. MEP, rough end, mechanical, electrical, HVAC, plumbing, fire protection, all those trades are in the process of doing their rough end in that north structure. And then also a concrete block is being installed on the ground, on the garage level of that north structure. The south structure, materials were received mid last week. They've got the second floor walls up. I want to say they started setting trusses for that third floor deck end of last week, beginning of this week. So they're making some catching up on the schedule on that south structure. The overhead power lines, there's a little bit of discussion earlier this week, or no, end of last week, in regards to that overhead power utility. I was able to reach out to IPL, and they were able to then re-engage the street department about the rerouting of that power. So hopefully we should hear some correspondence back from those guys in the near future. The overall project schedule for the Wilshaw project is a little bit behind schedule due to some inclement weather at the beginning of the year, but then also some material availability issues, although CRG feel that they'll be able to make up that schedule over the course of the project. They're pretty confident there. I've been very impressed with their cleanliness on the job site, the transparency in their communication, and just seem to be a really solid group of guys. The Loftus Robinson project, the hotel, they've stated they're nearing closing on their financing for that project. They're wrapping up the approval process with the hotel chain on their interior selections and finishes and stuff like that. Pepper Construction has been notified to schedule the geotech or the geopiers, so hopefully we get an update on that schedule in the immediate future as to when they think they're going to be out on site doing those geopiers. And we have also requested a overall construction project schedule for them. So once I have that, I'll be able to turn it over to you all for review. So anybody have any questions, comments, concerns?
I will add to some of that last portion. So we met with both Skinnell and Loftus Robinson last week regarding the bond status, and went over, we were concerned that it has not started construction on the hotel portion. It should have by now, and it keeps getting pushed back. So we have requested a construction schedule. They did inform us that Pepper should be starting those next couple of weeks, hopefully prior to final construction financing. They said they're about 60 days out for getting through all the paperwork with their construction financing. So we will not take out any bond until that's in place. So we're still kind of in a holding pattern. We're doing any steps we can on our end to make sure that as soon as that's in place, we pull the trigger so there's not a huge delay. It'll probably be about 2 weeks after construction financing's in place. But we want to make sure everything's moving forward and mobilized. In a strange way, even though the hotel construction's delayed from where we thought it was going to be, I'm sure that they're excited that they kind of have the framing done and out of the way. It'll make having two construction firms on site a little bit easier, because there was some concern how you're going to stage at the same time. So our big factor is just timing of the construction, because we want to make sure for bond purposes that our schedule meets on when it's assessed. So we're kind of hoping that the apartments are done or close to done by the end of the year, and that the hotel's close to or fully done by the end of 2019.
Mm-hmm. You know, they've gone pretty quickly on the framing in both the apartment buildings, and that south building, having that second level already framed out and the trusses on the third floor level, that'll go quickly. Do you anticipate the tapestry being completed as they originally had planned on time?
Probably not at this point in time.
Yeah,
So,
It's kind of,
we originally were
What do you
going,
say?
you know, the original date was in May that I had heard, so you're not looking to full construction once they get everything on the ground till probably September,
at the earliest.
probably.
Yeah, so you're probably going to have a delay in there.
Okay. Well, that's what happens with major projects like this, unforeseen circumstances. A little disappointed they didn't have their financing lined up in an appropriate amount of time, but you know, we'll see that progress in the future. Any other questions of Mark concerning the Wilshaw presentation? Well, Mark, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate it. The next update we have is our 2500 North High School initiative and redevelopment, and what I'd like to do is turn it over to Tim to give us a nice update on that project.
Well, actually, if it's all right with you, we'll hold off till new business.
Oh, okay, to discuss the July 9th event. Okay. So let's delay that until our new business agenda item. The next agenda item we do have two resolutions on our agenda for consideration and approval. The first resolution is an authorization for the president and the executive director to execute certain contracts at certain monetary levels. It will help us expedite the business of the commission. And we had discussed this in an earlier session, and we have a consensus of our commission that this is probably advisable. And Tim, you want to give more of the details, the elements of the resolution before we entertain a motion?
Yeah, absolutely. This is in conjunction with, as projects are discussed, we have to execute to get to move them along, and there's times where we might execute the project, but then we need to do appraisals or a survey or something comes up. And instead of waiting till the next meeting, this would authorize, depending on what the level is, the president or the director to be able to execute those contracts to get them underway as to not delay those projects that are discussed. It is not an open ability for us to just go out and do whatever we want. It has to be in line with what we're trying to do. For instance, was we had the access development architecture agreement on 1300 block, and we got it shortly after a meeting, so we had to wait an entire another month. It wasn't worth calling a special meeting, but you know, we burned an entire month and they're waiting for that. So this would allow us to, hey, we talked about the project, we know it's coming, let's go ahead and execute it. And then report back to the SRC that has been done. One minor change from the draft that the SRC saw earlier is we added that any expense that the director signs off on must first be approved by the president, so he's aware that I'm signing that, or whoever happens to be sitting in the director position. The limits are below what state statute allows by quite a bit, so
Considerably.
it'll allow the director anything up to 10,000 and the SRC president to execute anything up to 25,000, as long as it's reported back to the SRC at the next meeting.
The state allows up to 50,000, right?
Correct.
Before that formalized competitive bidding has to take place.
Yep.
Anybody have any questions of Tim or any comments regarding the resolution? Well, hearing none, I entertain a motion to accept resolution number 2018-04.
I move that we accept Resolution 2018-04, authorizing the President and Executive Director to execute certain contracts.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any further discussion concerning the motion and the second? Hearing none, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you. And thank you, Tim. The next item is Resolution 2018-05. And This is a resolution concerning the application for an an economic development administration grant for the 2500 High School Road project. So, Tim, you want to give a little bit further explanation of this resolution?
Yeah. We had authorized to go out and we had executed a contract with Keyser and Associates to go after an economic development administration grant. As we're working through that process, one of the requirements early on is a resolution just confirming the support of the SRC, establishing that there are matching funds available. In this case, we will most likely either use TIF dollars or land sale proceeds, depending on how it goes. So I left both of those in the resolution. It also deems the executive director as a point of contact for the project and just gives the general support that we want to move forward, and it also deems why the project's necessary within the guidelines, things like that. So this is not committing us to anything directly other than we support the concept of getting the matching grants when necessary and that they're available for the project when that time comes. It is not necessarily establishing a bond or anything.
No. Has no monetary impact whatsoever. It's just showing the support of the commission to go over those federal dollars, the state dollars, to help with the economic development here in the town of Speedway. Any further questions of Tim regarding Resolution 2018-05?
Tim, do you just want to talk about the dollar amount for that grant?
For the, how much the grant potentially up. So there's actually two grants that we'll be applying for. The first one, which is an infrastructure assistance grant, is for up to $3 million. It's a 75-25 match. So where the community would put in 25%. It does not in any way, it could be any amount up to $3 million, so it in no way guarantees us. They'll look at the project and based on the necessary needs and everything determine what the value would be. And then there's a secondary grant that's a planning grant that would help with engineering and planning costs and upfront costs that's up to $300,000. You can get both grants. You're eligible for both. We're going to actually apply for the bigger one first and then go back and see if we can tag on the smaller one. But obviously we want to get the largest amount possible.
You know, I think also with the expertise we now have at Town Hall with our town manager and economic development director, we're much more aware of these opportunities that will be significantly assistance to our projects. Any other questions? Well, then I'll entertain a motion to accept Resolution 2018-05.
I'd like to make a motion, Mr. President, to accept Resolution 2018-05, resolution concerning the application for the EDA grant for 2500 North High School Road.
Okay, I have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion regarding the motion? Hearing none, let's take it to a vote. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes 3-0. Thank you, Tim. Now we get into, the very interesting portion of our agenda. And I know it's been exciting up to this point, so let's go on to our new business. We have a request from our director, Economic Development Director, to attend the International Economic Development Council annual meeting in Atlanta. And that, I believe, is coming up in July.
September 30th to October 3rd.
Okay.
So.
And we have the detail of those expenses, and this is something that, the commission has really committed to our economic development director to continue his professional development with his certification. And it's an excellent international event. It's very similar to some of those that I've attended in the past. I think he will bring back some great contacts as well as, some great information that will assist in the performance of his duties. So, I personally want to, approve that. I don't think we need a motion. I think if we have a consensus by the commission that we can send him off to Atlanta and hope that he returns. You're on your way.
Have you ever been to Atlanta?
You'd want to come back, wouldn't you? Yeah, you'd want to come back.
It is Atlanta, Georgia, not Atlanta, Indiana.
Yeah, not Atlanta, Indiana. We had that discussion earlier. It's Atlanta, Georgia. So it'll be a good experience for you.
The reason I'm bringing it forward now is if we register before July,
You get a registration.
20th, you get 120, yeah, early bird registration saves us $120.
Good.
Appreciate that.
Great.
Always looking out for you.
Good. The next item we have under new business, and it is the, the deferred update on our 2500 North High School Road project, or redevelopment initiative. So I'll turn that over to Tim to talk about the update as well as a public input session that we will be holding this coming early July. So, Tim, go ahead.
Yeah, as a quick reminder, we had taken a step back on the 2500 High School Road Redevelopment Commission, or redevelopment of the area up there by Crawfordsville and High School Road. We wanted to get a little more information. We were in a lot of ways flying blind, trying to negotiate a deal. So we have completed, it's taken a little longer than we initially anticipated, but we have kind of completed the rough estimates of the engineering necessary up there. We've done some rough estimates of what we project land sales could be up there if all goes well, depending on how we ultimately lay out the property, and then also projected potential TIF revenue. So we kind of asked, what would it be if we maximized the property out there? So there were a few surprises in there, but the project looks pretty good, and I think we're in a better negotiating position as an SRC as well to move forward. But before we do anything up there, we have promised and want to make sure we execute that we have public input on the project, because this isn't just our project, this is the public project, and it's the new gateway to the community, so we want to make sure we hear all voices. We also want an opportunity to explain the development challenges that site poses, and as well as explain, how we anticipate being able to execute a redevelopment up there. So we have set a public input session, which is up on the screen, for Monday, July 9th. It'll be at the Speedway Public Library, meeting room A, and it'll be from 5 to 6:30. And I want to express that the format is not a come everybody sit and listen to us talk, so you do not need to be there at 5 if you cannot make it. It's a come and go as you please. We plan on having stations there that you can come around, ask questions, write down ideas, draw on a map if you want. So it's an interactive conversation that we hope to have with the public to get input, feedback on what some concepts are. We do have some concepts made out, but we'll also kind of have a blank slate and explain why we got to the concepts we did, but also hear feedback from the community of what they'd like to see. And then we'll kind of compile all that. If it's super busy, we will look at trying to schedule another input session to accommodate everybody. But we think with that format, we're able to accommodate most people that would want to get some input. So we'll be working on the logistics of that hopefully this week. But again, Monday, July 9th, 5 to 6:30. We'll be pushing that notice out via various ways we do that through the Speedway online notifications. We'll have it on the websites, other things like that, to make sure we get as many people as possible.
Do you know how many individuals subscribe to the town's email notifications with updates? And
I do not off the top of my head. I could find that out.
I think it'd be helpful if if the town could try to promote more participation in that. I know I do welcome everybody at the beginning of each meeting, and I do that somewhat in jest because we have very few individuals that show up on a regular basis. And those of you who do, I sincerely appreciate that. But participation by our citizens is really critical, not only at our commission meetings, but also the council meetings. So as aggressively as we can promote this event, I think it's going to benefit all of the community and all of our citizens. It's a great opportunity to do some tremendous things with those 23, 24 acres. We do have challenges, as Tim had mentioned, and a lot of people will drive by that site and they'll say, well, let's just go ahead and put some buildings up. It's not that simple. There's a lot that is going to go into the preparation of that land for development. And this session is going to be very insightful for those who don't have, let's say, the experience or knowledge in construction and development. So those of you that are here, I would sincerely encourage you to tell your neighbors, tell your friends to show up for this event. And I certainly hope that we have to schedule a second session, because that'll show the interest of the citizens, and also that, they want to see us do it right. And we intend to do that right. And I know there's been some objections in the community through the various years ever since this commission was established. And we attempt to respond to all those objections as much as we possibly can. We want to be open, we want to be transparent, and we want to share information where we can. So please encourage your friends, your neighbors, your family members to show up for that session, and we'll try to promote it the best that we possibly can. So does anybody have any questions of Tim on that discussion item? Nope. Great. Well, thank you very much, Tim. Let's move on to old business, and we do not have any old business on our agenda at this stage. So what I'll do is let's move to the next to the last item is our director's report. And I know you've been very informative, but I'm sure there's some other items that you'd like to share with us.
Just a couple items. One is just like the commission know that we received our spring draw for TIF dollars, and we're evaluating those numbers now.
Okay.
And we'll report back at our next meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
That's about it.
Anybody else have anything to report or share with the audience? Both those here in person as well as those that are watching on our YouTube channel. And I'm sure we probably have hundreds of individuals that are viewing that right now.
I would like to thank Mr. and Mrs. Huff from Barbecue and Bourbon. They hosted the old Speedway City Neighborhood Association community picnic. Went off very well. They donated a lot of meat, and it was fantastic. And I think they're looking forward to scheduling that next year, and look forward to that event. So I think they're going to try and continue to grow it. So.
Well,
very well attended.
Encourage Allison to keep David on the board. I think that's kind of critical to that event. Great. Do you have anything?
I do. The Speedway Bike Club has started their membership drive, and that's going to be every Tuesday at Big Woods. So tomorrow night at 5:30, the membership drive with a short bike ride at 6:15. Families are welcome to participate in that.
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, great family activity. Terry, do you have anything that you'd like to add?
Nope.
Great. Thank you. Tim, anything else?
I'm good.
Well, then, we've reached the end of our agenda, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. Thank you, everybody.